May the road rise up to meet you, and the wind be on your back. May the sun shine warm upon you, and the rain fall gently down.
Hello, welcome back. Today we're at week 39 of the series, and that will cover days 259 to 265. Or if you have the addition of the road rising that follows the calendar, then you'd be looking at September 14th to September 20th. I hope you have your emotional seat belts on. Is there such a thing? Anyway, I hope you know what I mean. This week is filled with every emotional extreme in the book. Remember, we left the pilgrim last week nearly paralyzed with fear, looking up in the darkness at two cat-like eyes, and the voice of a demon who threatens to see both him and his son destroyed. In desperation, friend picks up a rock and charges the beast, only to run headlong into a solid wall. God turns on the lights at that point, and the monster proves to be nothing more than a tiny creature with large eyes perched on a ledge. I picture something like a fat chipmunk. Friend's terror is quickly transformed to blind rage. But before he can succeed in making chipmunk stew, the voice of God is heard, and he says, "It is not yours to destroy what I have created. His fate is in my hands, and I will deal with him as I see fit, just as I will deal with you." The discussion ends there, and father and son move on to the summit, where the young man he's carried into heaven, leaving his father alone on the mountaintop. But not before the Lamb of Lambs speaks, telling him, "Do not be dismayed. Your son is with me, and in the Father's time you also will come up these steps. I am the Lamb you sought for. I am the way to life." No one can experience something like that without some kind of reaction. Looking through the Bible at similar encounters, I chose the face down in the mud option. Any adrenaline he might have started with was most certainly drained after his encounter with the demon, and then followed that with the loss of his son, albeit under miraculous and divine circumstances. And now he's alone. I think the title of the day's entry for September 19th, day 264, pretty well says it all. Numb. Let me read. In the midst of grief, one cannot expect to think or act rationally. But why was I grieving? I had been in the presence of the Lamb of God. My son was now with him, and I was promised that the day would come when I too would join him. Such revelations should have filled me with joy. Instead, I had awoken to the reality of a lonely mountaintop and a dead child. In spite of the wonderful blessing which had been mine, I could not deny my grief, and the grief overtook me. I sat there where I had fallen, next to the sword and the string of lion's teeth. I mourned for my son, I mourned for myself, and I mourned for the journey which so occupied my life these past several months. How could I possibly go on, now that my life was shattered? What difference would it make if I lived or died here on this mountain? I gazed at the sword lying at my feet, and a mirthless laugh escaped my lips. So what if I slay 1,000 demons from hell or 10,000 lions who attack me? Death will win in the end. I could not fight it, not anymore. What use were friendships or sunsets or Lizzie's stew? If there was no more meaning to life than this, why should I concern myself with it? I remained unmoving, unthinking for the most part, except when such thoughts of futility tortured me. In an unconscious attempt at self-preservation, I drove all thought from my mind, until all that was left were the involuntary motions of heartbeat and breath. I would have stopped those if I could, but such an action would have required more than I was prepared to give. So instead, I sat. The sun moved across the sky and finally settled below the horizon. The wind blew the clouds away and stars filled the night sky. But I cannot remember looking at them. All was emptiness. The day's entry concludes with a passage from the book of Job, a harbinger, I'm afraid, of things to come. Job chapter 10, verses 20 to 22. Are not my few days almost over? Turn away from me so that I can have a moment's joy before I go to the place of no return, to the land of gloom and deep shadow, to the land of deepest night, of deep shadow and disorder, where even the light is like darkness. Fellow traveler, if you started this journey with me 39 weeks ago, when this series began, you've survived an incredible ordeal, and I hope it's making you stronger as it's intended to do. Now, with this unimaginable loss, you may be feeling, as I felt in real life when I was experiencing something very similar. You may be feeling the urge to just toss it. To heck with it. There's plenty of happy stuff out there. I don't need this. If you're feeling that right now, then please don't despair. We're talking about grief now, and this is the point I want to make. When you're in the midst of grief, it looks like a bottomless pit. Even now, as I read these lines again, I was reminded of that kick in the gut pain. I thought I'd never survive. But listen, I did survive, and I'm a better man for having gone through it. So hear me well. Take a deep breath, and please keep walking with me. You'll come out on the other side, and you'll gain something you could never have gained any other way. I promise. Stay with me. And with every fiber I can muster right now, I say again, y'all come back now. Here? Don't lead with the line, I know how you feel. The fact is, you don't know. Every person's grief is tailored to fit. And even if you've suffered something similar or even worse, you cannot pretend to feel another's hurt.